So I've talked a little bit about the internal piece and the external piece. What I want us to see is that a child's internal regulation is going to be very important to understanding how they act and what that external piece is going to look at. So when we talk about internal regulation, a healthy parent-child relationship leads to a healthy brain. And we have to understand that our kids that didn't have this, their brains literally are wired differently. They think differently, they process differently, their ability to understand language and communicate and retrieve information, not just store information in memory, but to be able to go back and retrieve the information is going to be different as well. And it leads to an intact nervous system, whether they get really hyper aroused, their sensory system as well, and it leads to a belief that the world is safe. That's internal. That's everything that's happening within that body system. And trauma can happen at any level. What we have to understand then is that if there's that internal chaos, internally they're completely dysregulated. Their minds are thinking at high rates of the rapid thinking. They can't process information. They're having trouble with the language. That internal piece within them is going to blow. They're going to have this external piece that shows. We got to keep working to help the internal piece with Billy. I can't stress that enough. And the analogy I use is the idea of scaffolding. What we have to do is create environments to be able to scaffold Billy up. A lot of our kids are going to need some extra measures to give them a level playing field. And this is what the IEP is for. This is what the 504 plan is for. And even if a kid doesn't qualify for these things, we can be able to connect in relationship and be that scaffolding around that child. We can start decreasing the level of stress in this child's life. This means this may be the child that instead of going to like into the cafeteria, right? What is the cafeteria like? It's it's those three words again: fear, stress, and overwhelm. How many of you all, as teachers or as parents, can go into a school cafeteria, sit there and have lunch for 20 minutes and come out feeling regulated? Or do you come out dysregulated, right? I can't. No way. Explanation point. No, no, and no. So think about that environment. The school cafeteria is not scaffolding Billy up. In fact, what it's doing is creating more internal chaos. So by just an example, what do I mean by putting in external supports? This might be the child that doesn't go to the cafeteria, or they might have a special section, or maybe they have lunch with the teacher or the guidance counselor in a small, contained environment where they can connect with someone, the noise level is down, and then they can go back to the classroom and actually learn. So we're going to have to put in some measures that mean a little bit extra support around our kids, which means more of our time, and I understand that, and that's going to be one of the variables that we have to work with. How do you actually do that when our resources are so low? But it's the whole idea of overstimulation is, you all know this. You all know Chuck E. Cheese. I don't know, some of you all that may be global, you don't know what Chuck E. Cheese is, but here in the States and Canada, we have Chuck E. Cheese. Chuck E. Cheese isn't right. You put a child that has a trouble self-regulating into Chuck E. Cheese, what are they going to do? They're going to flip out on you. They're going to go in utter chaos. And that's kind of what I'm saying. Not that the classroom is Chuck E. Cheese. I'm giving you definitely a huge, exaggerated example. But seriously, this may be the child that doesn't go on the field trip, not as a punishment, but because the place that the class is going is too overwhelming for Billy. And so putting in boundaries around this may be exactly what this child needs in order for us to start identifying stress and how we can pull back on that level of stress so that child doesn't get overwhelmed, they don't act out, and we're creating an environment that works for them. What I want us to see is this: our kids are just stressed out, period. I don't care what their diagnosis is, what their history is. Right now, when that child is in that classroom or trying to get ready for school at home or trying to do their homework at home, they're stressed out. Look for the stress. The window of stress tolerance. And the reason I use that whole idea of Andy and Billy, it helps us to compare our children. And as much as we're not supposed to compare our children, Because every good mental health professional will tell you what? Don't compare your children. The reality is, what do? We compare Andy against Billy. So just let's use that as a learning tool. When we look at Andy, what we realize with Andy is that Andy has a set point for stress. Every one of us has stress. If we don't have stress, we're dead. So stress is good. The problem is it gets to be too much. So Andy's set point of stress is down here. Now, Billy's stress point is just tuned up. This is a kid that has had those very traumatizing experiences, those high states of arousal. No one was there to calm him back down. And so now Billy's new normal is just set really high, especially compared to Andy. Now, when we put these two kids together and we draw a line for the breaking point, and this is the point that either one of these children are going to just blow. This is the child that either goes into fight or flight, hypoarousal or hyperarousal, and they're really stuck in that state. Well, look at Andy. From the point that Andy just operates down here to the point he's actually going to hit his breaking point, what does he have? This is his window. This is a large window of stress tolerance. He can handle a lot. This is the child that wakes up and maybe they get a little grumpy in the morning because mom or dad, you forgot to buy Andy's Cheerios. And so Andy was really expecting Cheerios, but you forgot. And so Andy was able to have oatmeal. He gets on the bus finally, and maybe the bus driver is different today. There's a substitute. So now his seat, there's a big bully in his seat, and he can't sit in his seat. So he gets a little upset and he goes sits in another seat and he gets to class. He gets to school and he waits out in the courtyard with all these other kids, loud noises, social dynamics, and then he goes into the classroom and Andy is able to put his backpack up, turn in his homework and sit down and pull out his pencil and be ready. See, all along, Andy had a lot of insults to his stress level, things that he didn't expect. Things were happening and unwinding a little bit different in the morning. But you know what? He had this big window of stress tolerance, so he was able to do what? He was able to manage. And he was able to sit there ready for school. Now let's take that same scenario and look at Billy. You all know what's going to happen. See, Billy's working up here. Billy then only has a small window of tolerance. He lives moments away from his breaking point. So Billy gets up in the morning and Billy expects Cheerios. And mom, dad, you forgot the Cheerios. So what's going to happen? Does Billy just go, oh man, okay, I'll have oatmeal? No. Right then and there, Billy blows up. He yells, he screams, he's cursing, he's throwing the bowl, he's throwing the chair, he's screaming, I hate you, I'm never going to school. He's punching holes in the wall. Why is that different? Is it because he's bad? No, what I want you to see is that Billy is just living with a small window of tolerance so that when things happen and they unfold in a way that is unpredictable, in a way that he doesn't expect it to be, then he can't handle it. Because this predictability piece is really important. See, trauma happens by surprise. So the minute something happens by surprise in Billy's life, he thinks that his life is over. Boom, he blows out. So I want us to see that even though the behaviors are inappropriate, none of us are going to argue that. It's not okay to act that way, Billy. What I want us to start seeing is that Billy just can't handle life. And so, you know what? In that example, this may be the child that probably doesn't even go to school yet. This putting the scaffolding around means maybe the outside environment is too much. Maybe going to school is more than Billy can handle right now. Maybe this is the child that is homebound or homeschooled for a little bit so that we can start then building his window of tolerance. See, what I want us to see is that when we start taking measures, and they might be drastic measures, they might be just small measures, is that children then have resiliency. And it's the nervous system that is plastic. There's a plasticity about the body where they can change and they can heal.